All right, welcome back to the lab. I'm here with my friends Tim Garlin and Lieutenant Commander Justin Woods.
That's me.
And today's episode's a little different because I think sometimes when we come across so many interesting people in our industry, especially in real estate, so many different facets. But what we start finding is that, especially with military folks, it is so overlapping the entrepreneurial spirit of real estate. And that self-drive and self-discipline that people need, that it's weird how we start meeting people that are from a military background, how much that overlaps, just the mindset. So I know talking with him, we're like, hey, I got this guy, young guy, youngest lieutenant commander I've ever met, and said, we got to have him come in. So here we are.
Well, I appreciate you guys bringing me on the show. Thank you. All right, it's my first podcast. No,
That's all good.
But no, I for some reason, Tim and I, we always run into each other when we're shopping. I don't know what that means, but I was at the store doing some Christmas shopping, and then I was like, hey, Justin. I look back, I was like, oh, God, who is I know who that is. And he's like, it's me. And I was like, oh, I know. Okay, what's going on? So we talked for what? 20 minutes or so, just in the store. I'm like shopping. The lady was like trying to give me stuff, but it doesn't matter. But yeah, I look at Tim and a lot of my dad's cohort, you could say, his group of guys, his posse, as you will, as mentors for me, because growing up I had a lot of that to kind of guide me. And I the older I get, the more I think about it's good to listen to all that wisdom and all that knowledge that you're bestowed upon if you're lucky enough to have a group like that. Like, I'm lucky enough to be one of the folks that, I had my dad, I had my mom, my entire life, pretty structured household. And I think all young guys, young men, even women, they should, if they're blessed enough to have that, to soak up as much knowledge as they can. And that's what I tried to do. And granted, it wasn't always like, I wasn't just always receptive to it. I was 16, 15 years old, running around. I don't want to listen to my dad. I don't want to listen to you. Like, what do you know, old man?
What do you know?
Yeah, what do you know? You don't know. But the older you get, you start to realize, depending on what path you follow, you start to realize, like, hey, these folks have your best interests in mind, in my opinion. I know that's not always the case for everybody, but for me, it was. So I think something clicked for me when I was graduating college, where my dad and I was at that age where, we're kind of beefing, we're getting into it. And he's like, you need to, do this and this and this. You need to join the Navy. You need to do all these things. And I just wasn't receptive. I didn't want to hear it because I wanted to do my own thing. Like, my buddies and I had started a company called Dynasty Select back at the time at San Diego State. Media marketing thing. We're making clothes. We're doing branding, doing all that stuff. And I thought, hey, this is the way. And then started making music with one of my buddies, Il Nicky. He's still doing it. He's big time producer, artist. And I thought that was my path. And my dad was like, hey, yeah, this is good, but you need to do this. You need to do this. And I didn't want to hear it until, I don't know what it was. Something clicked when I was about 19, 20. I think it was just I wanted to get out of the house and get away from him. And I was like, you know what? Let me just listen to this guy. Let me just hear him out and see where it goes. And, I did it. And instead of me, going against the current, I kind of just let the waves engulf me, and I just let it go from there. And then once I did that, I started to realize, like, hey, wait, this stuff is pretty easy. This is, it was almost like it's where I'm supposed to be. It's like I've been groomed for this my whole life, and I get in the position, I enlisted at first, and it just came natural, and it was easy for me, and that propelled me to where I'm at now.
I really appreciate how you started out, because one of the premises of this podcast specifically was for my kids. So people don't know that. People think all the time. I went back to home during Christmas time, and my family's like, oh, dude, the podcast's looking good, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
And for different reasons, people would ask, or the reasons why. And I said, honestly, the reason why is because my kids are at an age where they don't listen to me, but there's a disconnect of understanding of the world. And when I come home, especially in this industry, I meet so many interesting people.
Yep.
And everybody from politics to sports, and you name it. And so my kids hear about these things. And when I'm telling them my personal knowledge, in reality, it's not even coming from my life experience. It's because I've had conversations with people that actually inspire me, and then I just pass it to my kids.
Exactly.
So I said, hey, you know what? I'm just going to start putting it on record, put it on YouTube when they're ready for it. They can watch it. And so ironic that when you're saying these things, I'm like, this is exactly how I felt when I was that age.
Yep.
And now as a father, as I grow older, I keep doing my dad isms.
Yep. Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? You ever get those?
I mean, I'm not a dad yet, but I got a good stash of dad jokes.
Well, I mean more so. Do you ever find yourself saying something and then you pause for a second, like, shit,
I sound like my dad.
I sound like my dad.
100%. I do it all the time. I mean, even when I'm with my mom or anybody, my aunts, uncles, my sisters, like, you are Jimmy Woods. Like, you are him. Did he spit you out? Because you're a carbon copy clone. And
like, for real.
The older I get, the more I think, I'm like, wow, I'm him. I look in the mirror and it's like, I see my dad, you know, and there's my mom in there too. I think I got a good blend of both of them. Like, my mom is the gentler, like I said, my dad was the iron fist, mom was a velvet glove. So I took a lot away from my mom, but the stubbornness and just all that's directly Jimmy Woods.
Yeah. I know his dad for a long time, like I said, like 25 years. And when I saw him, every time I see him, the first thing I think, hey, there's Jay.
There's Jay.
Oh, it's the other Jay.
Yeah.
It's little Jay.
It's little Jay.
Yeah. But man, it like we were talking before we pressed the record button, you know, knowing this kid for as long as I have and just seeing him grow from a kid to graduating from college to turning into the man that he's turned into. It was impressive to watch. I wasn't the closest to him, you know, played a lot of golf with his dad, heard all the stories. And, so I don't know if I told you this. So he said, you know, we ran into each other in the store. I called your dad probably 7 times.
He did tell me. He told me, he's like, yeah, I gotta, but they're in Antigua.
No, he hadn't left yet.
Oh, they hadn't left yet. Okay.
And I called him like 7 times. He didn't answer the phone. Didn't answer the phone. He finally answered the phone. I'm like, hey, dude, if I'm calling you that many times, I got to talk to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
He goes, what's up? And I said, I ran into your son and you did an amazing fucking job. You should be really, really proud of your son. And then we just started talking about real estate, and then I got you on the phone with him, and then now here we are.
Right? Was he on the golf course when you called him?
No, just finished.
Because I had that same problem too.
That's why he didn't. Why he didn't answer the phone.
Yeah. I'll call him. I'll call my dad, and a lot of times I call my dad, which is good. And I hope you have a son and daughter.
Both.
Okay. I hope once they get to that age, they can call you. Like, I call my dad. Like, I call my mom and dad. Like, my mom, she'll get just like, you always call your dad. I was like, well, I'm calling dad as like a man for advice on a lot of things. I'll call you, tell you I love you, and see how you're doing, check in on you.
Right.
But I call my dad. A lot of times I call my dad, and I'm just fuming about something, and he knows it. That's why he doesn't answer me. He's, oh shit, Justin's, you know. Calm down, son. Like, what's going on?
Justin's on one.
You know what though? You bring up a really good point though. I think there's a really good balance in that. Because, you know, and I don't want to sound sexist, but typically from the mom side, when you have a good balanced household, mom really delivers the emotional support.
Exactly.
They are the feminine energy in the house, and it's a different kind of energy.
Yep.
It's nothing wrong with that. It's a loving energy. It's one of the places that makes you feel accepted and makes you feel comfortable, right? Make you a nice bowl of soup on Christmas Eve, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But dads are just different. They're built different for the most part, right?
I think so.
And it's the critical thinking. It's tell me what your problem is and I'll give you a solution.
Exactly.
It's just to the point. But I think that's how men operate. And it's really fortunate that you have a dad in your life, in your household, that actually is able to provide that type of masculine energy. And that's probably what makes you a lot of what you are today.
I think so.
Because he's like the Google of dad, right?
Yeah. And I think it's when I look at the male, like, father figure, the role model type, I strive to be similar to, you know, what my father was, that masculine role. I try to be that in an ever-changing world. We won't need to get into it, but I think that dynamic, it's good to raise, you know, a good generation of young men. You kind of need that, you know?
Yeah.
And my dad provides that for me, and Tim and I were talking before we even started. It's like, I was bestowed upon, or he bestowed so much knowledge on me in his circle. These guys, you know, there's a lot of guys, a lot of old salty chiefs and, you know, folks that I'm sitting here as a young kid, 10, 11, 12, 9, you know, young kid watching how they're conducting themselves. And I almost equate it to like, it was almost like a mafia type deal in the Navy, excuse me. But I see all their mannerisms. I see how they conduct themselves. I see how they carry themselves. I see how they do business and how they do things. And I like try my hardest to instill that into like my junior sailors and bring that type of leadership to, you know, the environments that I'm working in now. And I just think there needs to be more of that in the world society, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you. It feels very much so like a fraternity.
Exactly.
And it's really hard for people to fathom what that really means.
Mm-hmm.
Like some people, when you're in the inner city, especially,
Yep.
you can get it maybe from a gang.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the dad's not around. You need a place of belonging, and who else do you turn to but the other guys that you can, in your neighborhood that you can hang out with.
Uh-huh.
But when you have a senior generation that's around you, that's kind of how I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I was the youngest kid playing poker with my uncles.
Yeah.
Right? And they're all there doing their thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the cohesiveness of the family, when we barbecued, like I got shit tons of cousins and relatives.
Yeah.
And it was a group of people.
Yeah.
You know, it was a lot of people, but that family time of coming together and, you know, it's not a bad thing. And I think sometimes it gets frowned upon
Mm-hmm.
that our society, that men are being masculine in that way.
Yeah.
But in reality, just from what you just said, the mannerisms,
Yeah.
how they conduct themselves.
Exactly.
There is no real playbook on how to be a guy.
No, there's not. It's little things. And I think about this stuff to myself even when I was at the mall, when I was walking around. I remember little things that my dad would tell me when I was a kid. Just simple things like, pick your head up, son. Like, don't walk with your head down. Get your hands out of your pockets. Little things like that.
I sound like that.
When you shake someone's hand, you look at them in the eye. You know, you give them a good firm handshake. All those little things, you know, are things that could get lost in translation if younger men, and I can't say the women's aspect of it because I'm not a woman, but I think younger men need that. They need a role model to kind of teach them those nuances because, like, how else are they going to learn it? And everyone has that sense of belonging. Everyone has that sense of, okay, maybe if you don't have a father figure like that, you're going to turn to something that can fill that void, whether it be gang or your friends or something like that. You're gonna find something to fill that gap.
And those little things that you talk about, head up when you're walking.
Yeah.
Get your hands out of your pockets.
Mm-hmm.
Handshake, eye contact. As little of things as those seem on the surface, they're major things.
Oh yeah.
Because you don't know who you're being introduced to.
Exactly.
When you look eye to eye and you shake somebody's hand, it's a respect thing.
It's definitely a respect thing.
How they receive it is how they're going to view you short term.
Like little things like you shake, you know, right hand. You don't sit down when you shake hands. Little things like that you wouldn't necessarily know, and it's just that kind of I can't put my finger on it, but it's just things you should have to do.
Yeah, it's really hard to describe though.
Yeah.
Because there's no rule book.
There's no rule book.
But the weird thing is that regardless of the culture that you're in, you could be in the jungles of the Amazon, and yet you still have young men looking at the senior guys and they're seeing how to operate, how to navigate.
Yep.
But the weird thing is, I think as guys versus, you know, especially like watching my daughter grow up, recognizing that you're just in a part of a hierarchy. So when you're a younger guy, you're like, I know I'm not in charge. I'm the young guy.
Yep.
But at the same time, as you start growing older, you're like, I can hold my own.
Yeah.
And once you start realizing I can hold my own, that's when the butting the head starts.
Yeah.
But that's where I think as guys, where we make the mistake is where our ego starts getting too big when you're too young.
Oh yeah. My buddy Alex, your ego is not your amigo, my friend. He always says that. And it's true with me because I think my ego gets to me often, and I try to quell that and I try to, you know, keep it in check. But it's going to be an ongoing battle. Everyone has it, but you just have to remember like little things to kind of keep it in check and just humble yourself. And that's something that I work on. My wife tells me all the time, like, oh, maybe you should try and humble yourself. And I'm like, fuck that. But nope. But you need to. So
yeah.
I know with everything, and I was telling Tim this, I get like, oh, you're doing so well for yourself. You got your master's, you're a lieutenant commander in the Navy, you graduated San Diego State, you started a business when you're that, like, I look at that as like, yeah, those are things that I did, but I don't look at them as like, oh, I'm the man, or I did all this. Like, no, I've got a long way to go. Like, I look at it as to keep myself in check. Like, you haven't done anything yet. Like, your final purpose is not complete. Like, I just finished, master's degree. What's next? Like, it's not it. Like, it's not, okay, time to take a break. It's like, nope, it's time to hit the gas and figure out what you're going to do next. So that's how I try to propel myself and keep moving up through the ranks. And I don't claim to know a lot about everything, but I think I know a lot about, or I think I know a little bit about a lot of things. And the things that I don't know, I'm gonna pick up the phone. I'm real good at that. I will call you if I have a question. I'm gonna call my dad. I'm gonna call this person. If I got any kind of qualm or any kind of like issue what's going on and I don't have the full answer, you better believe I'm going to find out, because I have networked well enough to where I know someone that knows something about pretty much everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
So as long as you keep those relationships, and they're genuine relationships, like my dad always says, like, people tell him, like, there's no stranger in the world like to my dad, because my dad, we joke and say he's the mayor of San Diego, like, and he knows everyone. There's times when I'm around here and I'll get stopped at the mall, like, hey, Jay. And I'm like, no, that's the other guy. And it's like, it's people my dad know, but they're like, hey, take my card. Like, I've heard about you. Give me a call. Yeah. I keep those numbers. I save those contacts. And when I need help with something, hey, can you help me out here? Like, I've got questions. You're an expert. What should I do here? And then I'll take that advice and kind of put my own spin on it based on what I'm feeling in my gut. And then I'll execute a decision, make a decision, live with it. My dad says it all the time. Yep. So
that was something.
How long was your dad in the Navy for?
What, 22 years?
22 years?
Like yeah.
Was he here stationed the majority of the time?
The majority of times.
On off ship?
He was a recruiter, so he never had, he wasn't always a recruiter. He was on the ship before he was on the USS America. Back in the day, I think that's the only ship he did, but then they transferred him to recruiting duty. My mom was an SK, which is funny because now I'm a supply officer, so SKs are the predecessors of LSs, and LSs are logistics specialists. They're the ones who typically work in supply department under a supply officer. So when I got picked up to be a supply officer, my mom, it was kind of like a callback to her, because if she was still in the Navy with her job, she'd be working for me.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
So
which is kind of weird when you get to that point, right?
Oh, it is weird. It's really weird to think, like, even when I got commissioned and my dad had to salute me, it's like it felt really good though, because it was that culminating point where it's like, hey, I was a little knucklehead when I was a kid. I mean, I think I was a good kid, but me and my friends, we ran around, we
did kid stuff.
We did kid stuff,
Yeah.
But as I got older and he and I were butting heads about what to do after college, because I had job interviews, but this was right around 2012 when I graduated, and things were kind of shaky in the market. Sure, I could have went out and got like a sales job or a recruiting job or something like that, and my dad was just very adamant about, like, no, that job is not good. You're not going to do that. You're not going to do that. You're not going to do this. Like, you need to join the Navy. And I didn't want to hear it. And like I said earlier, finally, when I just said, you know what, this man's not going to steer me wrong. He has the juice. And how we talked about earlier, it's like that collective of the generation of like the mafia, where he has the contacts. He's the same way I am, or I'm the same way he is. I should say that. He knows someone everywhere. And I'll tell you how it even worked out. He's like, look, son, you don't think I have the juice? Like, if you join the Navy, if you want to do this, like, I've got you. Like, I know someone for everything. You're still going to have to put the work in, but it's that opening the door to get you in. That's the hard part. Once that door's open, you got to perform. You got to do what you're going to do. And it's just like, from the time I said, I'm going to do it, the doors would open up and I'd walk through them and I would perform like I'm supposed to perform. And I think that's a huge thing with anything in life. It's like, networking is huge. And if you can just open the door, if someone can open the door for you, you have to perform. You have to, like, okay, you got your shot, you got to take it, And I try to do that as much as I can I've been blessed enough to make it to the level I'm at. So I try my hardest to instill that into younger guys who are trying to make it to where I've gotten to. And I'm not there yet, but younger sailors that are enlisted, like, hey, I want to be an officer. All right, well, this is what you need to do. I can make this phone call for you, but you got to want it. Here's what you're going to have to do. It's not easy, but if you want it, you can do it.
That's beautiful. I always remember back to when they would talk about like the 4-minute mile or like the 5-minute mile and the 6-minute mile. Like when the first guy ran this thing, then that set the bar and for everybody to catch up to the next, right? And then once they see that, those same people can go back and mentor the others. This is how I got to here. And this is what was holding me back. Don't let it hold you back. And it's amazing to see, fast forward, when you're now in a position where you outrank your dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't tell you how proud that must feel for your kid to excel beyond where you go. Because, you know, we all are trying to break generational cycles for one reason or another.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, there's some people, it's like, I'm the first graduate in college. Great. And it's like, okay, now I'm the first person to own real estate. Awesome. Or whatever those things are. As parents, we want to see our kids blow past where we're at. Take whatever we've gotten out of life and go above and beyond that. So I think unselfishly, a lot of times when we're trying to tell our kids, these are the things you need to know and this is why. It's just to accelerate that game plan. It's never to hold them back or never to be malicious. It's like, here, let me push you forward, son. Let me get you there.
And I think, and maybe it's God made it this way for a reason. Like kids, what's that saying where they say it's like youth is wasted on the young or something like that? I think it's just something in our brains that has us wired to where we think when we're younger. I think I'm closer to being like, you know, in my 20s than you guys are. But I think when we're younger, we think we know everything. We've lived. We know everything. We've got that fervor. We've got that drive. We have all this stuff of all these things we want to do, and we kind of just put what the older generation has to say aside because, oh, you guys, you don't know what you're talking about, old man or old lady. Like, you don't know what you're saying. But they do because they lived the same thing you did. They were in your shoes. They know what they're talking about. And if you just take some of the nuances of what they're saying and you listen to it and you take it on board, you know, actively just absorb that, you'll be in a better position, I think. You know,
100%. I was told once, it says, the tactics never change. The application of the tactics is what changes. So if you wanted to study, you know, how to run teams or how to run anything, I mean, you can go back to ancient Troy and see how they were fighting battles, and then the Romans, how they fought battles, and then how they fight battles. There's no difference.
No.
Logistics is logistics.
Oh yeah,
taking care of
battles.
It's all it is.
It's my supply plug there.
If you're not fed, the army doesn't move forward.
Exactly.
Right. But those principles don't change, and I think that that's where the disconnect happens. They think that, oh well, back then that was totally different. No.
No, it's not.
It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
You just have a different way to apply it today.
Exactly.
That's all it is.
It's the same thing. But I think, and we were talking about earlier was an original question. You were saying that Navy folks and the overlap. I think the Navy or just the military in general provides you that structure if you're willing to take it on board. You know, a lot of the military guys, we have just that tenacity, that nature, that drive to want to excel, to be a leader. They say everybody in the military is a leader. You know, it's not for everyone. That's why, you know, people, they join the military, they do their 4 years, they get out. It's, you know, it's an ends to a means. It's whatever they need. But I think the overlap comes from the camaraderie and just the drive to excel. Because in the Navy, it's like you've got your shipmates, you've got your fellow soldiers, you've got your airmen, you've got whatever it is. They're the ones that are going to hold your back when you're downrange doing whatever you're going to do. So it's like that fraternal organization. And I think that a lot of the things that the military instills into you, it overlaps into the business world, whether 100%. You want to take it on board or not. Like some people don't do that. You know, I'm trying my best to use the military as a tool. I mean, I enjoy it. I love it, you know, but I want to use it as a tool to learn and garner as much information and knowledge and skills that I can. So that way I'm going to take the uniform off one day, but I'll be better prepared in an ever evolving world. And the skills that they're teaching me, like military just sent me to the Naval Postgraduate School for my MBA. So I just got a master's in contracting and acquisitions. That's going to overlap into the business world. Like when I retire, like crazy.
Yeah.
You know?
You go in M&A.
Exactly. So it's just all dependent on what you want to do. You can join the military and skate by, you know, you can do that.
For sure.
You can do that and not get anything
Swab
out
the
of
deck
it.
all day.
Yeah, you can not get anything out of it, but if you take advantage of all the opportunities, you're going to get a wealth of information, knowledge, and training. And, you know, it's not easy, believe me. Like I've done my share of deployments. I've been away from my family. I've missed birthdays and all that stuff. But I think I was groomed as a kid to do that because both my parents are in the military.
You know, let's touch base on that a little bit because I know there is a catch-22. So the positive side that I've always seen in the military is that the way that the structure is designed is exactly like the business world designed. The only difference is just the acronyms. Like literally just the acronyms.
There's tons of acronyms.
Too many acronyms. and forms and checklists.
Oh yeah,
But
there's a checklist for everything.
Checklist for everything. But what's crazy is having those SOPs or those standard operating procedures.
Mm-hmm.
So many businesses that get created today, a lot of times guys just wing it.
Yeah.
They'll just start winging it. And when I talk to guys that get out of the military and they feel kind of bummed, and this is the other half of the military, is because since it's been so pre-designed for you, when you get out of that space, you lose this complete identity.
Yeah.
And the routine's gone, and the everything's gone. The camaraderie, you're on your own.
Exactly.
But what I tell them is this. I'm like, look, bro, while you were in, you were being taught like not even a college level course. Like this is like on the job training of how business should operate. And so now when you're in the civilian world, you think that you're behind it because you were stuck in the military. Mm-hmm. Actually, the opposite. You were taught so many principles about the way things operate that it's actually an advantage for you when you get out. Mm-hmm. And I don't think enough people either recognize that, the guys that are currently in the military, to absorb some of that information. Mm-hmm. And then those of the civilian world have enough appreciation for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
that's an interesting way to put it, though. I bet you, you being active duty now, I bet it's not instilled in people that way.
I can kind of speak on it a little bit because I did have multiple jobs before I joined the Navy, like just high school stuff, and then we did start the business when I was in college. But I think what the difference will be, or not the difference, but what will help me when I leave the Navy is everything that you said, essentially, like just the routine, the daily structure. That's going to be instilled into me, and I don't even think that the Navy instilled that into me by itself, because it's been instilled to me as a kid, because
you were groomed.
I was groomed into it. So I guess you could say the Navy did do it because it did for my parents,
for your father,
and he did the same thing for me. So I think that it's just naturally ingrained in me that I think whatever I decide to go into, whatever endeavor I decide to go to when I get out, it's going to be a part of my everyday routine where I just can't just wing something. Right. I can't just go in willy-nilly. It's like I need to have a plan. Hey, what are we going to do here? Where is this going to go? I need to have that structure, because it just irks me if it's not there. It's just weird. Yeah. So whether whoever I work for, if I work for myself, which would be ideal, that's going to be something that is definitely instilled into whatever endeavor I decide to go into when I get out of the military.
It's beautiful because one of the reasons we talk about the principles of the lab, the lab is a place where we kind of get all these ingredients that come together off of someone's success. And then from there, those are the building blocks we got them forward. That's literally the principles of the lab. So that's why I do it for my kids. And I love that you said that, because especially being a lieutenant commander, because we always talk about commander's intent. And that's no different than the CEO mindset. Yeah. It's just
same thing.
It's the same thing. Let me create the vision of what I want to see have happen. Then from there, it's deconstructing that vision. What do I need to reverse engineer to get this accomplished? What are the tools I need, the people I need, and the time set that I need?
And you need your people, those people that you need, they need to buy into what you're saying.
Right?
It's the same thing for a company.
Same thing for a company.
Exactly.
It's the same exact principles for a company.
Yeah.
And no different. So when we get out of this, I talk to guys that never were in the military, maybe grew up in the hood. Totally fine. School of hard knocks. I get that.
Yep.
But the tactical advantage of being in the military and understanding those concepts of procedure that are placed, that is like going to a very specific type of business school.
Yeah. And what I love about I'm a logistics officer. I don't think I said this. Supply officer. So what we do is everything we do, there's an SOP, there's a book, there's a publication, there's something you can always look to find the answer. And guess what? The other piece of that, sometimes you can't find the answer, but guess what? There's someone that has done what you did. So you pick up the phone and you call that person. And we're such a tight-knit community where, supply officers, we all pretty much know each other. There's not very many of us. I mean, there's a lot, but in comparison to SWOs and other designators, there's not that many of us. So it's like it behooves you to know these folks and create those relationships, so that way, especially like the senior guys, because they've done what you are going through. They've seen what you're going through. They've seen the issue. Pick up the phone, call them like, hey, what do I do here? I do that often. Like I said, I don't know everything, but I know to pick up the phone when I don't know something. And that's one of my biggest things. It's like there's so much knowledge out there. You don't have to do this alone. You don't have to struggle alone. Don't struggle in silence is what I want to say. someone's going to be able to help you if you have that network, and someone has done what you need to do or has gone through what you're going through. And I think that's huge.
Do you ever give book assignments to your guys? That ones that want to like progress in life?
Unofficially, it's not like, hey, here's an assignment. It's like when I have junior folks that ask me questions, they're like, hey, I'm trying to be like Suppo. I'm trying to do this. Or, hey, Suppo, can you help me out? Hey, read this book. Like I'm reading, my dad gave me 48 Laws of Power. I've been reading that.
That book should be illegal.
Yeah, it should be. There's tons of stuff out there. Like my dad, when I was a kid, made me read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That should be every kid should read that one. You know, there's just tons of stuff out there.
What would be your top 5 books?
Rich Dad, Poor Dad, 48 Laws of Power. I like the Odyssey. I kind of like the fantasy stuff, like sci-fi stuff. But I read Trump's book. Let's see, what's another one I read?
Have you done Think and Grow Rich?
No, I haven't read that one.
Read that book.
Yeah.
Ben Hogan's book on golf, but I'm a golfer. So.
Remind me, Tim, I have extra copies. I'm going to get you a copy of Think and Grow Rich.
Okay, appreciate
Napoleon
that.
Hill.
Appreciate that.
He actually has 2 great books, by the way.
Uh-huh.
One of them, the Think and Grow Rich, because when you were talking about having the key contacts, right? Like you know a lot about everything, right? So there's a chapter in the book. He talks about so premise of this book. Back in like 1890, Dale Carnegie Steel, right?
Yep.
He said, "Hey, I want to get somebody to go out through the world and get what are the key building blocks of all these magnates, right? These guys that are like Henry Ford and people that are running these big industries, Rockefeller, and interview them to try and figure out what are the principles of these individuals, right?"
Yep.
Well, one of the guys that was interviewed was Henry Ford. And the chapter in there about Henry Ford talks about when he was going through a congressional hearing because he didn't graduate high school, didn't graduate junior high. He was like in 6th grade, right? But yet he's running this large automotive company. He's the Elon Musk of the time.
Yep.
And so while he was there, one of the guys, I think was like an attorney that was trying to like basically take over that company while he didn't deserve to be in that position, asked him some general ass question. What's like the length of legs for Lincoln, right?
Yeah.
Something dumb.
Yeah.
And Henry Ford responds, he's like, look, I have 3 phones on my desk. All I need is to know at the end of one of these 3 phone calls, they have the answers that I need.
Exactly.
I don't store myself with useless information.
You don't exactly.
Right?
You don't need to know everything about everything, but if you know who knows the answer, there you go.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
So when you were saying that, that's what I was asking. Like,
Yeah.
I wonder what books he reads.
I like Sun Tzu. I've read that probably 4 times. I mean, The Creature from Jekyll Island. That's a book about like banking. And that kind of stuff. I love that kind. I love that kind of
Don't
stuff.
get into
man.
archaeology, bro.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
that's going to be another
Nah.
like deep animal.
The Creature from Jekyll Island. I wish I could unread.
Yeah, it's
Dude, when you like, because I like to like now I go through a lot of archaeology.
uh-huh.
So I started doing that. I started going down the path of Jekyll Island
Yeah.
and started going into more and more history.
Yeah.
And the more and more uncover of history, the more you find that it's been hidden.
Oh yeah, we don't even have to get on that. One thing I think the thing that absorbs a lot of my time is I love history for some reason. I was always good when I was in high school. History class, like some people hated it. I loved it. Me and my teacher were good buddies. Like I was like, man, this is great stuff. Like it's just interesting to me. Like I'll sit there and watch the History Channel shows. I'll go on YouTube and watch like ancient Egypt this or oh they did like because there's so much stuff that we don't know about, like Samaria and all this stuff that we don't know that. It's just interesting to me, and I'm like, why not learn this stuff? It's just instead of wasting my time with a useless, why not learn about some history? It's interesting. It's just fun to me.
So I'm going to pause right here for just a second.
Yeah.
And one of the things I bring up often is what I tell you about the 4 rules of combat.
Yeah.
Right. So let's just pause for a second. Number 1, wake up with a purpose.
Yep.
Check. Okay. 2. What was number 2?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Come on, man.
Number 2. So change is always necessary.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 3. Always be coachable.
Yeah.
Always be coachable. And number 4, and you said this, you can't take over the world alone. Enlist the help of other people.
Oh yeah. You definitely can't.
And it amazes me every single time that we keep meeting people like yourself that have these key principles. It never fails. It never fails.
Yeah.
And that to me amazes me because after every self-help book or every like Think and Grow Rich and this and all these different things, it always boils down to those 4 key principles.
Yeah.
And so now, if I were to ever go back in the military now, that's why I was asking about the books. I'm like, man, you know what I wish I would have done? Knowing what I know now, and I have these books stored now in my closet for my kids. I got like 4 of each book.
Yeah.
Because I give them away too sometimes. But I'm like, Think and Grow Rich. Here's one book. Richest Man in Babylon. Here's another book.
Rich Man in Babylon. I've opened that one. I haven't finished it, but yeah.
I have it here if you want a copy.
Okay. I've opened it. Like I get a lot of book ideas from my dad. Some of the ones he gives me, he's like, you need to read this. I was like, I'm not reading that. Like, nah, it's just not at my alley. But a lot of the ones he gives me, I'll crack them open. And it's funny because when I was a kid, I was not the reader. I could read, but I wanted to go out and play with my friends. I wanted to ride bikes. Yeah. He's like, before you go out and play, you better, you're going to read before you and your sister leave the house. Chores going to be done, and you better read a book. And when I get home, you better tell me about what you read. Like, I had a book project over the summer. I was going to, I think, Houston to visit my aunt and uncle or something like that, and he gave me this book. I'm thinking it's going to be horseshoes and rainbows. I'm going to be playing with my cousin, swimming.
Yeah.
He's like, here's this book, and you better read it, and I want to report. And I was like, are you kidding me, man? Like, school's out. I'm not trying to do this.
What did he give you?
I don't remember that. He didn't give me like a grade, but it was like, you better read this or, you're going to.
Yeah.
So I think the grade was not getting beat down because I read it.
Yeah, it was a pass fail.
Yeah, pass. Basically, yeah. There was no in between. It was pass or fail. Like I read it, so I know. Don't BS me, son. So,
but I love the fact of those books. My daughter's a big reader now, and so I was talking to her about 1984.
Oh, that's another one of my favorites too.
Yeah. Great book.
So it's like when you asked me the 5 books, I was like, man, there's so many. It's like I'm blanking. I'm like, but there's so many books that I like that I've read. Yeah. And it's like, how do I just choose 5 off the top of my head?
You have to almost compartmentalize them.
Oh yeah. You got to put them in like stages and like archetypes and like genres.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My little sister was a big reader. I wasn't. She was reading all the Harry Potter books, and she's really smart, but it just wasn't me. I'd like to think of our family tree, my 2 sisters, my older sister, my younger sister. It's like they are very intelligent, like book smart types. I don't know what happened with me. I got good grades.
It's different.
But I'm just
principle based.
I'm principle based, and I think I was more of like, hey, just get this done, where it's like they were learning, they knew things. Me, I was like, school wasn't hard for me, but it wasn't easy for me. I just was I wanted to play sports. I wanted to hang out with my friends. I still got the good grades for fear of getting my head knocked in.
Yeah. you just got the work done.
I just got the work done.
And they wanted to know how the work got done.
Even in college, like when I started out, it was like I was getting C's. I
heard about it.
Yeah, my dad probably told you he says I wanted to leave school. I don't think that ever happened. I think he's making that up. Like I didn't want to leave school.
He probably blew up a point where you maybe doubted yourself.
Yeah, that's probably what it was. Like he was talking about leaving San Diego State. My dad does that a lot. Like where he'll just fabricate thing. Like I'm old enough now to know, and I love my dad, man. He's great. I love my mom too. But my dad is funny in a way that I know when he's BSing. Like he'll be like, oh, I did this and I went over and I told the manager. I'm like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't, Dad. Like you probably 90% of that story is accurate. The other 10 that you said that is
the good part.
The good part is not true.
Yeah.
It's funny. Like I'll give you that. It's funny. Like, and I get that from him. But you're like, stop it.
Yeah.
Like knock it off.
Oh, trust me, I've got a lot of Jay Wood stories.
Yeah, a lot. That's awesome.
A lot. And then we won't talk about them though, Jay. No, I'm not gonna do that to you.
Oh man, believe me, it's like my friends make fun of me now. It's like when my dad comes in town, it's like, hey, is Jay coming to town? Is Jimmy coming to town? And I was like, oh, as soon as he comes to town, Justin, he's field mouse. You know what I'm saying? Yes, sir. No, sir. He's quiet. It's like he overshadows me. And I'm like, dude, like he's proud of me. I get it. But like when he shows up, it's like, I'm not that funny no more. Yeah. He just takes over everything.
Yeah.
Which is great. Like I love being around my dad. And he and I together are just like a duo, just a comic pair. But
to see it though, like knowing him as long as I have and knowing you from when you were a kid till you are now. Yeah. But to see the pride that your dad has when you guys are together.
Yeah.
Just the littlest things. Like the last time we played in that little tournament thing at North Island. Just seeing the two of you interact, and then you probably catch these moments, but I notice them because I just think it's so cool. Like he'll just stand there and look at you a certain way.
I never notice it.
He'd just stand there and look at you and go, you could just see it.
He's like, I'm just so damn proud.
One
Really?
proud motherfucker. Hell yeah.
See, he tells me I'm not one of those guys like, oh, my dad did. Like, he tells me all the time that he's proud of me. Like, son, keep doing what you're doing. And I love those conversations I have with him. But I never, when we're around, I never notice it.
Well, Anthony just told a story, I don't know, 2-3 times ago when I was there about your dad sitting there and just staring at you across the bar.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know, when you guys went fishing and all that, just that beaming moment of like, wow, son, I've never been more proud. And so back earlier, I was bringing up when I called your dad and he finally called me back and I was just like, dude, incredible. You know, and I told him about the conversation we had.
Oh yeah.
Told him that I had him talk to Anthony. He's like, thank you so much, man. He's like, that's what I want to be able to provide for my son.
Yeah.
Like, Tim, you running into him was a blessing today. And then like the network of people that you have, like you mentioned Tony, you mentioned Craig, Sid, all those dudes, man, all these guys that I got to know from playing golf. I mean, a lot of them were mentors for me in a way. Like I could call and bounce things off of them and they go, oh, no, this is what that is, da-da-da-da-da. But for him and the career path that he chose, his network is insane.
How much time do you have in now?
Over a decade.
You're a decade. When did you enlist?
2012.
Are you planning on staying in for a full 20? Try and get to retirement?
I'm thinking about getting out next year.
Really?
No, man. Of course not.
I'm like,
I was like, what?
Yeah, no.
I have a friend that did, bro. He was a major and he got out 17 or 16 years.
No, there's some.
Are you sure?
There's some folks that would be very upset if I did that. But I don't want to do that. That's just a joke. But so I enlisted. It's a funny story. I enlisted because I told you my dad and I were butting heads. I was like, fine, I'm just gonna listen to him. I enlisted, went to boot camp, and it just came natural. It was easy. I was already 24. I had a couple jobs. I was financially.
Did you go in
savvy.
as an E3?
I went as an E3 because I had my degree.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I did.
So I was 24, enlisted. Boot camp was a breeze. Plus my dad gave me all the gouge. Like, hey, when this happens, do this. When this happens, do this. Don't say anything here. Don't do that. So it was easy. Then I got to A school, which is like you're kind of training for your job. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. You're in the Navy.
Yeah.
So I went there and again, a breeze. I mean, the school part was a little challenging, but it was fine. It was a breeze. And then just the things that have been instilled into me my whole life, they stood out. Like I was a little bit older, granted, but I was already 24. Everybody's 18, 19, 20, 21. They're out doing dumb stuff. I'm here for a job, dude. Like, this is a job. I'm not going out partying. I'm not going out doing dumb stuff. This isn't college for me, for like some of these young kids. I went to college. I did all that.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm here for
business. It's out of your system already.
It's out of my system. I'm here for business. And it's like, I'm on time. I'm looking good in my uniform. And my chiefs, like, they recognize that. They're like, hey, this kid's got it going on. Like, hey, Woods, what's going on? Like, hey, you're going to be class leader. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. And it was easy for me. I'm just leading a bunch of kids, like, I've been doing it my whole life.
Yeah.
Like, it's easy. So immediately, like, that was recognized. My LPO, Chief Wilson, loved the dude to death. He's like, hey, how about we're giving out orders for all the guys and girls in our class? And everybody got their orders except for me. And I was like, dude, what's going on? And the chief comes in and he's like, hey, like, what's going on, Seaman Woods? I was like, he's like, you look kind of down. I was like, yeah, I didn't get orders. Like, what's going on? He's like, well, yeah, that's what I want to talk to you about. I want you to come work for me on the USS America back in San Diego. And I was like, are you kidding me? That was the boat
your dad was on?
My dad was on CVN 76, the America. It was a carrier.
Okay.
They recommissioned an LHA, the USS America LHA 6, as like an amphib. So it's like a montage to the name. They had the carrier and now they have this one. So he tells me, long story short, hey, you're going to come work for me because, you got great bearing, military bearing, you're smart. I want you to come work for me. So I was like, all right, cool. So I go to work for him on the ship, and the first day I check on board, he hadn't left. He was in Mississippi because the ship, that's where it was getting built. I was in San Diego and like in dock phase, whatever. So I met my Divo, Lieutenant JG at the time, Hake. I walk in the office. There's not that many people in there. So I walk in. I'm like, how you doing, sir? I'm Seaman Woods. I'm checking in my first day. And then I'm talking to him. He's like, hold on, wait a minute. He's like, wait, how old are you? And I was like, I'm 24, sir. Because I'm talking to him like, he's my age.
Right.
He's my age. He's a normal guy. So I'm like, I'm 24. He's like, yeah, you seem a lot older than some of these kids. Like, did you go to college? I was like, yeah, I graduated from San Diego State. He's like, why are you not an officer? I was like, well, I put officer package in before I enlisted. And like I said, my grades weren't that great. Right. It's competition. So I didn't get picked up. He's like, nope. Fuck that. Exact words. Like, fuck that. Go talk to Lieutenant Seawright. You're going to put a OCS package in right now. Like, you don't need to be here. Like, go put an OCS package in. I was like, okay. That was going to be the plan anyway, but all right, I'll take your word for it. So I put the package in, 6 months of work in, and the funny part, one of my dad's buddies, big time now, Admiral George Bresnahan, when I graduated college, and this is so funny, the synchronicities in life. When I graduated college, he came to my graduation party, and he was, I think he was commander at the time, lieutenant commander, and he asked me, he's like, hey, so I hear you're joining the Navy. Another guy my dad met on the golf course randomly. He's like, I hear you're joining the Navy. And I was like, yep, that's correct. And I didn't know. I was like, yeah, I'm going to join the Navy, blah, blah. He's like, so what do you want to do? I was like, I want to be a pilot. I want to be a SWO. I want to be something cool, you know? He's like, you sure you want to be a supply officer? And I was like, supply officer? Like, I don't want to do that. That ain't fun. That ain't sexy. Like, nah, I'm trying to be Top Gun. And he's like, I want to be an intel officer. He's like, okay, well, if you change your mind, let me know. Man, when I joined the Navy and I saw what them pilots and SWOs and all them people doing, and then they told me to put the OCS package in, I was like, Commander George, like, I think I want to be a supply officer. He's like, I knew you'd come around. So that's why I say it's like those networking and those doors that you open up, because he was the one that opened the door for me. Granted, I had to work for it. I had to have the bearing, like when I was on the ship enlisted, I had to do all that stuff. But he opened the door, I walked through it. And that's what life is about. Like, if you have someone open a door for you, you have to walk through it. I don't like when people complain or they like that victim mentality where, oh, this and that. It's like, no, dude, like, bad things happen, you learn from them, and you move on. Even with the bad thing that happens to you, it could turn into something good. Like, God gives you things that you want, not in your time, and he's going to test you. The universe is going to test you for what you want. If you really want something, guess what? Bad stuff is going to happen. It's, do you really want this? Do you really want this? You got to work for it. And then, you know, here I am a decade later, lieutenant commander, and I think I'm doing pretty well. Like, I just got promoted, and I was number one merit reordered, like how they do it when you get selected for officer.
Yeah.
They choose, like, the number top guys or girls in that class. And all right, this person's going to get promoted first. And I was like the number one guy, which was a good thing. Like I got to tell that to my dad on, when did they come out here last time? Before the wedding. They came out here, my dad and I were playing golf, and the results were due to come out. It was sometime in August or September. And I was like, I've been waiting for these results to come out. And I was like, man, it'd be great if the results came out when my mom and dad were here so I could tell them. And they didn't come out. So my parents were in town for a day. They're in town for 2 days, and he and I were playing golf with some of my buddies and all this stuff and his buddies. And then sure enough, I got a text message from one of my buddies. Like, hey, congratulations. And I was like, for what? He's like, what do you mean for what? Like, the list came out. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, you got promoted. And I was like, oh, nice. So I got to tell my dad then. And I kind of looked at the list. I was like, hey, by chance, like, what number was I? He's like, dude, you were number one. So I got to tell that to my dad, and he was stoked. He was, ecstatic. Yep. But that's where I'm at now, so.
That's awesome. That's a great outlook because, you know, I feel like, you know, you mentioned something about victim mentality. Uh-huh. And I try to explain to people sometimes without being politically incorrect.
Oh, yeah.
Going into the military, especially as a minority, you find people that once you get out of the military or you're amongst like civilians, you can hear a victim mentality mindset.
Oh, I see it all the time, man.
Right? But when you go in, it don't matter the nationality, the color, rich, poor, doesn't mean shit.
Nope.
Nothing. You start over fresh from scratch. So your vision of the world changes.
Oh, yeah.
Like completely. And it's really just based on your merit. And everybody's that way. But yet when I get out, I get told so much more. Oh, yeah, well, this happens and that happens. And, and you're held back from this and that. I'm like, nah, bro. You know what? I want to be successful, and I happen to be Hispanic, not because I got this because I was Hispanic and they gave it to me.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, that actually tastes worse for me.
Oh, yeah.
Don't hand me that shit.
Don't.
Hold me back.
Yeah.
I'd rather have that.
I can't stand it. It's like, you only got this because of A, B, C, and D, or you didn't get this because of A, B, C, and D. It's like, no, I'm going to get what I'm supposed to get because I work hard. And for me, I think it's good and it could be detriment. I've been told by senior commanders, I've talked to folks, it's like, hey, your outlook and your tenacity, your drive, your mentality, it's great. Some people don't like it. There's been times when people look at me and it's like, I'm
ruining the curve.
You're ruining the curve, or just your demeanor. I don't like it. You're not everyone's gonna like you there, because I think I'm pretty. Sometimes I could be loud, obnoxious, you know, but at the end of the day, it's like I'm a dog for, you need something done, you're going to call me because I'm going to get it done. It might not be, you know, the prettiest way, but at the end of the day, I'm going to get it out of the mud. I'm going to get what you need done. And some commanders like that. Some commanders don't like how I would necessarily speak in the wardroom sometimes. well, you're an officer, you need to uphold yourself like such and such. I'm like, that is true.
The politically correct.
That is
way.
true, you know. However, how I am and my demeanor, and that's gotten me to where I'm at now. Why would I change it? Sure, I can, tone some certain aspects of that down, but I'm not going to change who I am.
You can make minor adjustments, but
minor adjustments, but I'm not going to change because what you're seeing is what's gotten me to where I'm at right now, and it's been working. Why would you change a winning formula?
Right, the can-do attitude.
Exactly, and that just sometimes that rubs people in the wrong way. I think it's personality types don't jive sometimes. I think I'm pretty alpha, and there's other folks that could be alpha as well. And this was in the 48 Laws of Power, and I was reading this part about it, how it's like you don't want to outshine your boss. And sometimes I find myself not trying to do that, but doing that by
just by virtue of you doing you.
Of me
by
doing
accident.
me.
It's too easy to do.
It's too easy to do.
Yeah,
so it's
I can't help it.
You never want to do that.
Yeah.
I've gotten in trouble, not trouble, but I've had some roadblocks because of that.
You actually want to do the opposite. I learned that from Jocko. One thing, he's like, you got to manage people up.
Oh yeah.
If you have a weak management staff, help manage them up.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what can I do? I think that'd be a great idea if we can bring the guys together.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever thought about doing this? Hey, let's do a barbecue. Create some cohesiveness. That'd be fun.
Oh yeah.
Right, and then you give them the glory.
Mm-hmm.
Because deep down inside, even though they're getting the glory, they know deep down inside that dude helped me get.
Mm-hmm.
He pushed me forward.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's a very unique skill set in itself. Well, it takes a certain level of maturity to recognize that.
Oh yeah, that's what it is too. And you have to be able to recognize it. And like I said, I don't know everything, but I think I've come far along enough to where it's like there's certain things that I do know.
Yeah.
And that's one of them because it's been a detriment to me. Like my life has been harder because of that little thing, like times on the ship where it's like
the mindset,
like if you would just done such and such and just as much as you don't necessarily like this person or agree with them, but if you just bear with it and kind of go with the flow, your life will be easier. But me, it's so like that ego.
So
like,
in reality, regardless of the background, skin color, race, nationality, it makes no difference.
It makes no difference.
The mentality in itself is not only the game changer.
Yeah.
It requires a little bit of governor because when you let the mind go and you just drive, it's actually overpowering.
Yeah.
And you have to throttle it because there's some soft people out there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
oh man, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it really doesn't make a difference of your background or anything else.
Yeah.
The mentality is so powerful, you'll actually outshine other individuals.
Yeah.
And that's when you really realize this is all bullshit.
And what's crazy is not a lot of times, but this has happened to me before where people have this preconceived notion of me. They'll look at me and they have like, oh, this person's this. And then when I open my mouth or when they see me working, they're
Let
like,
them hear me speak.
Like, who is this guy?
Right.
Like, who is this guy? Or they have a preconceived notion. Like I had a person that was like, hey, like, how do you feel about this? What's going on? The whole George Floyd thing that happened back in the day. And this person was expecting me to have one idea of how I felt, and I was like completely turned that around on this person.
Yeah.
And they were shocked. They're like,
yeah. Same thing happened to me. Yeah.
It blew them back, and they're like, oh, you don't think like the rest of like, I'm like, no, I don't. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. Don't put me in the box.
Don't put me in that box. Like, and it's another situation where this person asked me, they're like, hey, like how do you carry yourself out in town? Like, how do you dress or how do you do this? And I was like,
I just am.
Like, what do you mean? Like, there's no
ask for permission.
I don't ask for permission. I don't do like. I think you know where I'm getting at with this whole thing.
Yes,
and it was just an awkward thing for me, and I was like, no, like this is a place of business. Like, don't ask me that. Like, this is weird.
And that mentality does not work in the military.
No,
and that's what I don't think that they can comprehend. Because if you bring that baggage with you, they're going to manage you out. This guy ain't going to make it. Because he's pointing at everybody else's fingers. Hey, listen, it's 100 push-ups, bro.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Just do it.
I try to, the military is great, but I try, like my dad would always say this, he's like, the military is going to take from you. You got to make sure that you get everything you can from the military. You have to make sure you get everything. And it's not a malicious thing. You need to get the education. You need to get, the knowledge. You need to get the skill set, the mind. You need to take all that and absorb it. And I try to instill that in the junior sailors as much as I can. And I think I'm doing pretty well because I have standing relationships with my old divisions and junior sailors that have worked for me. And it's like a bond. We still talk. We still have camaraderie. They still hit me up. Hey, what's going on, sir? I'm doing this. Or what do you think about this? Or I'll check in on them. And when I leave commands, like my wife will notice, she's like, I'll get these plaques and people sign them. And they're like, but people love you. I was like, because you treat people how you want to be treated and you take care of your folks.
They see you as a mentor.
A mentor.
Right. You're being your dad.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, this is one thing that I think I don't think it's going to get me in trouble or anything like that, but I've been told by senior officers that your people aren't always right. And I granted that is true. But that doesn't mean I'm going to let them out to dry, It's just hard for me. And I know there's going to come a situation where it's like this person or you. And it's just hard because I have this mentality where, like, no, I'm going to take care of my folks through thick and thin. Don't talk to my guys like that. Like when I was on my first ship, I had these guys back. They knew if something was going on or someone was trying to tell them, I would go off. And this is before I learned to kind of be tactful and stuff when I was a real junior officer. They knew, Disbo, he's going to go off, you know what I'm saying? But they knew he's going to go to bat for us.
Yeah.
He's going to go to bat for us. He has our best interest in mind. He's going to take care of us. And guess what that translates to? They're going to bust their ass for you.
That's right.
Because you know that they know that you're going to die for them. They're going to make sure that they take care of you.
There's a certain level of gratitude when you have a self-sacrificing mentality.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody's willing to self-sacrifice for you,
mm-hmm.
in return, you're willing to give them the shirt off your back.
Yeah. And I think I do that. That's just my personality.
That's probably one of the hardest transitions from going from the military world to the civilian world.
I think I'm going to see that. I don't think...
Because it's all about them.
Oh, yeah. I don't have that experience.
It's more usury.
At least that in-depth experience of what you just said, the civilian sector where it's like people aren't... It's not that camaraderie, that fraternity when you're in a civilian organization. People are out for themselves. In the military, it's like, no, we are, for lack of better terms, some people don't like to use the term family. We're a team. We're a unit. We're brothers and sisters. We take care of each other. It doesn't always happen, but that's the outlook.
That's what I call like a fraternity.
Yeah,
because it really is like a fraternity.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the fraternity, you have like graduating classes.
Yeah,
because in like when I got in the military in the 90s,
mm-hmm.
there was a certain like 90 era vibe.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what was the military like in the 90s? I kind of remember.
Yeah, it was different. I was in the transition from the old school military, so there was a pre-war conflict to the lead up to war.
Mm-hmm.
So the pre-war conflict, the only guys I had in my unit were maybe like in Desert Storm.
Yeah.
And so it was very old school conventional. And like I was a reconnaissance scout. So for me, it was a little bit different. I had these old conventional way and all of our training tactics was around like Russians.
Yeah.
The Russian, the Krasnovian Guard, we would call it, right?
Yeah.
Op Force was like the Krasnovians. Then we started transitioning into that urban environment and a secular environment and, understanding the nuances. And I remember doing some training to go to Afghanistan, and it was like doing the demining. Yeah. And you're sitting there on your stomach, and then you go to another course and they start talking to you about the indigenous populations and what, and you're like, holy shit, this is not what we trained for.
Yep.
We have always been worrying about this conventional warfare with the Russians.
Yep.
And now we're doing something completely brand new, and nobody knows. Like, this is no man's.
Yeah, and I think we're in that period right now with
I feel like
the military I'm in right now, because I joined during like the War on Terror days. You know, that's when I kind of got in, and now it's like that has wound down. Yep. And now we're like, I don't even know what it is now.
Dude, it's kind of scary if you start really getting into it, because